I'm always thinking, okay, how can I push my clients to make them better? Because if they go, that's okay, or that's all right, am I really moving them forward? Am I really helping them? You have to push and push and push to make them better. Otherwise, what's the point?
Welcome to the show. We are here. It is the beginning of February.
Yes.
Mandy, how was your January?
Amani, it's the month of love. There's so much love.
There is love. Valentine's Day is coming.
I love love too. All you need is love. Do you know that do you remember that medley from the Moulin Rouge soundtrack?
Yeah.
All you need is love. And then she's like, I'll end up on the streets. And he's like, all you need is love. I think that is one of the best medleys ever in the whole wide world, not just in a musical, but medley. And I love the premise of it. Love, love, love. And here we are. Cupid, pull back your bow.
Yes. Cupid is on the prowl.
Yeah. What do you have on your radar for February? Like what are you feeling for Feb?
February, I have a little travel mixed in. I think I'm going to Connecticut. I'm going to Seattle. And then, of course, it's Black History Month as well.
Awesome.
So I got a couple book events, and we're going to be celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the book release on the 18th of February. It's been a year already.
Wow. That went so fast, Amani. How can we support you? What a big year, man. How can we support you for the 1-year anniversary of your big fancy USA Today bestseller? Fancy.
Well, soon you'll see my little poster behind me. I'm getting it framed. So that I think in terms of celebrating, that's a good question. I think the goal for this year is to turn it into a trivia game.
Cool.
So if anyone has any resources or guidance or advice or things I can read to help learn, that's the goal for this year. That'll kind of, help celebrate. And I'll get back to you on any other specific items. Still trying to do book store visits whenever I'm traveling. So I'll just try to add that in.
Is it going to be like a quiet storm trivia game? Like, is it something like we can play online or play in person or bring to a slumber party kind of thing?
Definitely play in person. I'm not sure about the online component, but absolutely play in person. It's like you have cards, and I got to figure that out. That's what I need help with.
That's fun. Okay, game creators out there. I once dated a game creator. He was a jerk, so I will not introduce you to him.
We don't want that.
But I know there's communities of people that create these things. So game creators, listen up. You might have a potential client on your hands. Yeah.
Speaking of communities, why don't you talk to us about our guest today?
Okay. Well, I first met our guest in our digital hospitality community, which I know we've talked about before. We get together twice a week on Wednesdays and Fridays. It's a free community of amazing humans from around the world that want to help each other, lift each other up. It's called Rising Tides. Rising Tides lifts all ships. And this person, he's the founder of Richard Solutions. He's a coach. He's a mentor. He helps businesses not be boring. He makes people amazing. He's one of the kindest and funniest humans I've met in a real long time. And his business is ranked the 100 businesses for Small Business Saturday. So he's a mentor. He's a brand coach. Welcome to the stage, Richard Liverman.
Yes. Round of applause there for Richard.
Good evening from the UK.
Welcome, Richard. It's good to see you.
Awesome. Welcome to the show, Richard. We're so excited to have you. And you're coming to us from, as we say, over the pond, right? It's still okay to say that?
Yeah. Over the pond. I am about 90 miles north of London, right in the middle of the UK. And I love the States, done a lot of work over there, got family over there. And I was bragging to Mandi once that I'd like to say that I'm the only non-American to have ever been to Cleveland, Ohio 3 times, which I think should be on my LinkedIn profile.
Okay. Yes, we got to add that. So you were speaking in the green room about your family's football team. Which team is that, may I ask?
We have a couple. So my family's is Derby County, and there's also another one which is Arsenal,
Yes.
and they're my sort of family teams in the UK, and I have the privilege and misery of watching both of them depending on results. And then if we're talking American football, I am a Browns fan, which leads to a
More
lot of
misery.
disappointment.
Yes.
I mean, I'm
More
looking forward to
misery.
the draft, which is what we say most seasons.
Yes, yes, yes. Now I'm a Liverpool fan, so
I'm
that's for
sorry.
my. I know. Sorry for you. And then I also follow the Washington Commanders for American football. So understand. Okay. Why don't we start off telling us about maybe, is it true that you almost got fired or you got fired from your first job? I'm kind of curious about that story, if you can share that with us.
Oh gosh, well we start with an awkward one. It was
We like to get right at it, Richard. You told us
Yeah,
not
that's
to
great.
be boring. Yeah.
So I had a summer job as a student working for my uncle and aunt, and I had been out late, and we were working they do these big flower shows around the country, putting on displays of plants. I must have been 16 or 17 at the time. My auntie's quite a famous horticulturist and gardener in her own right. But this is I don't want to show my age, but let's just say mid-90s. And I've been out and I couldn't get back into the lorry, and I actually slept underneath the lorry, which, luckily the alcohol kept me warm and through the evening, and had to go to work the next day. And I remember getting into quite a lot of trouble. But in fairness, I did a good day's sales the next day, and I learned my lesson. But I found a brilliant reference letter from my auntie from the 90s, saying that Richard is capable and occasionally can be left by himself to look after the business. I'd like to say that I've matured and improved since then.
Okay. Just so people who might not understand what lorry is, explain that for people who might not know what
truck.
that is. Which is the truck.
Truck, lorry, big vehicle.
Okay, there you go. Okay, good. Just so people are aware. Yes, just so people are aware.
I mean, it sounds like it was warm. What time of year were you sleeping under the lorry?
It was summer. Summer.
You were fine. We've all passed out outside during summer somewhere.
Yeah.
All right.
It was memorable. Okay. But what's nice is my uncle's also one of my mentors, so I've learned so much from him, and one is not to drink too much when you have to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way.
It's a good lesson.
Yes,
Early. It's a good lesson to learn early. Yeah.
Yeah. Over to you, Mandi.
Well, first I wanted to give you just like a couple seconds to explain your business, what you do and how you do it, and then I've got a couple follow-up questions.
Yeah, I set my business up just towards the middle or end of COVID, and my business is all about helping people be more amazing. And I think there's different ways of doing that. And for me, it's about coaching and mentoring, whether it be businesses or individuals. It can be around brand consultancy, but it can also be, I work with a lot of neurodivergent entrepreneurs, so a lot of ADHD and autistic entrepreneurs that find it very comfortable to be with me. And I think for me, it's all about understanding the business and the individual, listening, and then trying to work with them to figure out ways to help them be more amazing. So I think my whole mantra is around don't be boring. But on the flip side of that is helping people to be more amazing. And that's sort of the simplified version of it. My job is to make other people more amazing.
So easy. I'm going to take a turn I wasn't expecting to, but I want to build on the neurodivergent piece, because you wrote a great article called ADHD and Me. And can you just share the story of that article? Like a little, people should read it. We'll put it in the show notes, but what brought you to read the article and the background of that? And then I'll have a couple follow-ups on that.
Do you know, truthfully, I nearly didn't publish it.
Why?
I wrote it, and I've been on a bit of a journey with autism. One of my sons is autistic, and I learned that I got diagnosed and found out that I was ADHD. And what's really interesting is you start to learn about stigma, and there is a stigma towards autistic people and towards ADHD people. Rain Man's got a lot to answer for. Thank you, Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise. But there's lots of different types of autism and lots of different types of ADHD. I've been really lucky in my career. I've worked on big brands. I've worked in corporates and independents. And now I have my own business, which I'm really proud of. And I wrote this article and I nearly didn't publish it. I was talking to my wife the night before, should I not? Because it's deeply personal. And I was concerned with how the business community would react, how some of my friends would react. And I published it. And what was really interesting was it was 99% positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some wonderful messages from friends and family, but I also had messages from people I've never met before. And people going, this is me, thank you. And it was one of those things that when I published it, I never expected it. And it's sort of taken me on so many different journeys, both research, business. I've spoke at conferences. I'm now on a advisory board for a UK organization that's trying to improve business and opportunities for neurodivergent and disabled people. And I think sometimes it takes courage to do these things, but it's also quite frightening. So it was very, very nearly written and not published. And I think everybody's written that email or that letter that they've never sent before.
Yeah, I agree, because I did a post over Thanksgiving, a very personal post that I wrote and deleted 3 times, and I actually scheduled the post, and then I unscheduled it, and then finally I just woke up and posted it, and it was the same thing. It was personal, it was positive, and so many people reached out to me, and it formed bridges I never knew were
Yeah.
possible. I didn't do it for that reason. I just did it because I was
Same.
called to that. So, like, were you called to do this in some way? You were like, I just got to get this out, or like, what made you bring this
There's
to
a
the
little
forefront?
bit where I was thinking, how can I make it easier for other people?
Mhm.
And if other people can, I don't know, read it and go, hey, that's me, or actually, why do we need to hide? And it was interesting because I was at a conference last year in Dublin, and they were talking about the stigma around different types of autism and how professional people hide it. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to embrace mine. I'm really pleased I did that article, because when you hear that research and you hear like something like only 10% of doctors have actually shared their autism diagnosis with colleagues because of fear of stigma and judgment. I mean, that's a crazy stat. And I think
Crazy.
sometimes you need people to break things. You need people to break things. That's not why I did it. But I just thought to myself, how can I make it easier for other people who, might find out that they are ADHD, and,
Mhm.
how can I make their lives slightly easier?
Yeah, I know what you mean about the stigma, because I was diagnosed with severe anxiety disorder 11 years ago. And
Okay.
people always say to me, like, well, how do you do with ruminating thoughts? Or why don't you just take a break? You don't seem stressed out. And I'm like, my anxiety disorder is very physical. Mine most of the time has nothing to do with my mind. Like, mine is a physical chemical rewiring of my body, but it is a stigma. And as a sales coach, I can use anxiety as a superpower, but it took me a while to share that with people too, because I didn't want to I didn't want to show a weakness. So I understand that. So I think anybody listening, I want people to know, like, these things that make you, these are your superpowers. These are not a weakness. In fact, these are gonna bring more people into your life than you ever imagined before.
And I heard a lovely quote, which was, shame dies when spoken about in safe spaces.
Mm.
Oh, wait, say that again. Say that again.
Shame dies when spoken in safe places.
Oh, that's good. That's
Mm.
good. I love that. I want to switch gears for a second, because you talk a lot in you are an expert in the branding world, and you do such a good job at getting companies to explain their offerings. in a clear and succinct way. What do you think companies are over explaining right now?
What they do.
Okay.
No one cares. No one cares. It's brutal. No one cares. Actually, why do you do it? How does this benefit the customer on their journey? And I think there's so many organizations, and normally smaller businesses, if I'm honest, small, medium-sized businesses, will spend all of their time explaining exactly what they do. The customer doesn't care. How's this going to help them? Why are you doing this? And I think sometimes I look at businesses and I think you've got a great proposition, but you're not communicating it. And I think there's that little bit where it's so obvious when you think about it. You know, I know we talk a lot about food, Mandy, and I think there's that little bit where you say, hey, we're a restaurant and we sell food. Okay, well, that's what you do. Actually, when you start saying to people, we're somewhere that you can have experiences, we're somewhere where you can share memories, somewhere where you don't need to do the washing up. How much more interesting is that? And it's so simple. And I think sometimes we see businesses talking about themselves as though they're the most important people in the world. No, you're not. You're not. Your
Customers are. Yep. Yep.
How would you define branding in 2026?
It's a good question. I think there's that bit where a lot of people talk about Simon Sinek and why. The whole, if you tell people your why. And I love that. I'm fully bought into it. And I think there's something really beautiful about it. I think where it's almost gone too far is if you look on LinkedIn, everybody's trying to save everybody. You know, they're almost using why as a weapon. So for me, it's about, I actually think a really great brand, and what I hope in 2026 is that people match style and substance. Because I think when you get the two things together, so sometimes I always joke about people that buy things off Instagram and TikTok, and then they get slightly disappointed when they actually get the product. So for me, a really great brand is when you've got the style and the substance. And what I really like to see from branding is people bringing the style, but also having the substance to back it up. Not just being another, hey, this is what I do, I'm going to make your life awesome, and this is my why. You can have a great brand and a great product. The two things don't have to be exclusive.
Who and what are some of the brands that you admire and think are like doing it the right way?
Do you know a brand I worked on probably 10 years ago, or a brand that I just think, one of the things I love about the States, you guys do good brands. You just don't realize it. And I've had the privilege of Jack Daniels and you know, there's that absolute global icon where what's inside the bottle is pretty decent, especially if you get Jack Daniels Gold or Gentleman Jack, some of the nice expressions. But I heard a wonderful story that they kept selling out of Jack Daniels at JFK Airport on a Tuesday night. And they could not understand why. They could not understand why. They looked at all the data. Why are we selling out? And I think somebody from Brown-Forman went to the airport, and it turned out that there were 2 or 3 flights, one to Nigeria, and I think there was one to Paris. And people were picking up a bottle of Jack to take a bit of America home with them. And it would just clear the shelves every time. But nobody actually asked until that moment, why do you buy this? And I think sometimes, you know, brands can mean so much to people. And I think when you look at some of the iconic American brands, whether it be Levi's, whether it be Nike, whether it be something like Jack, or even some of those hot sauces, you know, they mean something so personal to people. And I think that when you create a brand that has that connection with people on such a deep level, it's something really, really special, because it becomes more than just a logo. And it doesn't have to be a global super brand either. There's a brilliant shop in San Francisco called Upper Playground. And they use local street artists to create all their clothing. I love it. I've been to the shop a couple of times. I try and buy online from there once a year. And they use local artists. The product's fantastic. The proposition's great. So you don't have to be a global brand to have style and substance. You can be an independent in San Francisco.
Go ahead, Mandy, and then I got some more.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I want to build on this brand, this brilliance and brand thing you've got going. Can you take us back to Johannesburg, World Cup, Nike, which I know that was an account one of your mentors had worked on, and I'm sorry for your loss as well, but one of your mentors had worked on. Can you just share that story? Because I think this really illustrates exactly what you're talking about with brilliance and brand.
Yeah, I've worked with some pretty incredible people, and I worked with the late Mike Ratcliffe, who was an incredible creative mind in the UK. And Nike flew him over to Joburg in 2009 and said, right, we've got this space in this shopping center. Their brief was do something cool, dude, which I think is one of the most exciting and scary briefs you could possibly have. And he came up with the idea of creating a footballer made out of footballs. And it was 30 meters high. And the idea was it would be suspended from the ceiling with all these different footballs. Like, right, just drill through them. And Mike was like, no, we can do something better than that, which caused a load of headaches for his team. And he got these steel rings, suspended all the balls on fishing line. It's more like steel fishing line, and build a pavilion underneath it. And the whole idea was everything was going to be recycled. So Nike gave away the 5,500 footballs to local school kids. The pavilion was shared around local churches and groups. Everything was recycled. And it had 1.5 million visitors from around the world, as well as people who were shopping in the shopping mall. It was near where they staged the World Cup final, where England got nowhere near. And there was this bit where it was really interesting. At the end of the World Cup, there was a survey in all the marketing press. Who was the official sponsor of the World Cup? Nike got 51%. Adi got 49%. Adidas had spent a fortune sponsoring the World Cup. What Nike did was they captured and owned it. And I think what was really interesting was while everybody was doing these big digital activations, we went and did something that was physical, because we realized that camera phones were less prevalent in South Africa, but it was also about inspiring the next generation. It wasn't about digital, it was about something physical. And for me, is sometimes that kind of the thinking that we have can be quite limiting. Like, oh, we have to do something digital, or we have to do something because that's the way we've always done it. And I think that's probably why I always turn around and say, don't be boring. Because when you work with these big creative brains that go, well, why should we do that? You know, it's the World Cup. Let's do something cool. Let's just do something that's never been done before. Yeah, but how do we know it will work? Well, how do we know it won't? And I think there's that little bit of mindset and the idea of pushing boundaries. And my friend Mike said that actually when you present something to a client, it should scare them. Well, he had slightly more profound language than that, but he said it should scare them because it's something to do with pooping out an intestine. But it was along the lines of you need to push your clients, because otherwise how are you adding value to them? And I learned that in 2010. And in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, okay, how can I push my clients to make them better? Because if they go, that's okay, or that's all right, am I really moving them forward? Am I really helping them? And again, it's one of those ones where when you've worked on these big brands and you kind of learn the mindset that you have to push and push and push to make them better. Otherwise, what's the point? And I think that's something that I've taken those lessons into my career.
Fun fact, Mandy, before you continue, I was in Johannesburg for the World Cup in 2010.
I know you were, Amani. I know. Is that, wait, were you DJing there? Or no, you just went to watch?
To watch, but I DJ when it was in Brazil.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The next 4 years. Go ahead.
Yeah, that activation was in the Carlton Mall.
Okay. Yeah, because I was in Bloemfontein, Johannesburg, and Durban. Those were the 3 cities I went to. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I love football, so we have that in common. I wanted to ask, people get confused nowadays. How do you differentiate between branding and personal branding?
Personal branding is words I really find awkward. I think the whole thing with personal branding is there's been lots and lots of people who spoke about being authentic for years. And I think branding is branding for your business. That's it. And I think personal branding is you represent your business and the values within it. So when I go out, I represent Richer Solutions, my business. I'm the same in and out of work. Occasionally I might have to put a smart jacket on 2-3 times a year, but I'm the same in and out of work. And I think there's lots of people that have been selling personal branding a little bit like the emperor's new clothes. It's just branding. So for me, the values of my business are about creativity. It's about listening. It's about experience. It's about adding value. It's about making people more amazing. It's about care, creativity. You put all of that together. That's my business values, but they're no different to my own. So I think there is this little bit where people are looking to create these business personas. And I think there is a little bit where we talk about being masked and unmasked a lot in the autistic world. And I think in the business world, there is a time to swear like Gordon Ramsay, and there's a time not to. Is that masking or being unauthentic? I think it's about being respectful. But I think the values that a business has and the brand that a business has, when you go out representing a company, whether it's your own or somebody else's, that's business branding. Just my thoughts.
Okay. No. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. You also mentioned creativity. I speak a lot about creativity because I work with a lot of people in the arts, specifically musicians. Why do you think as we get older, people's creativity levels decline?
Because that's the way we've always done it. And I think there is this little bit where, for me, creativity is about solving problems. Whether it be a musician or a business person, it's about solving problems. And I think when we get used to things being the same way, this is why I always turn around and say, don't be boring, because I think there is this little bit where, you've got this tried and tested formula and you begin to play things safely. Actually, when it comes to being creative, it's about pushing boundaries, but whether it's pushing your own boundaries or the problem's boundaries. I understand why people do it, because there is that little bit where, you want that safety, whether it's for yourself or for your family, or in that safety and the security of the knowledge that you've already got. There's also that bit where just remember when it's fun. It's fun to push boundaries. I went to this brilliant TED talk last year with a colleague of mine, Scott Turner, and we saw this brilliant TED talk about this guy in London, in this really, really difficult part of London. And he put a leaflet through everybody's door in this tower block. And he said, please send a story. And they all sent a story. And he wrote a book with 230 stories in it. And he said, what had happened is we forgot how to play. And I think there's that little bit where as adults, we forget to play. And I think whether it's the school system or the cultures that we're in, we have play hammered out of us. Yet play is where creativity thrives. So for me, often when I'm working with people, I'll turn around and be like, right, I want you to play. I want you to play with this idea or with this problem and just almost bring the joy of play back in, because we see play as a real negative. Oh, that's what kids do. But actually play is where the really great creative bits come in. And Amani, I bet you've seen that with musicians where you're like, right, just stop trying. Just mess around and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I also, you spoke briefly in the beginning, but I'm really curious if you were to give us like 5 of the most common branding mistakes that brands you work with make, what comes to mind?
Okay. First of all, talking about the product is number one. Number 2 is thinking that a brand's a logo. Brand's more than a logo. It's like a way of life. And I was over in California 3 years ago now, 3-4 years ago. And I went to Disney in Arnhem. And what was amazing for me there was that it wasn't just the logo. It was the people who were in the park who made us feel welcome, who sold us overpriced beverages with a smile. It's actually living. It's almost trying to get under the skin of what a brand is. And for me, one of the things that I do with my clients, I often people say, right, can you recommend somebody to design a new logo for me? I'm like, throttle back, driver. Before you get to that point, let's do your brand DNA. What are your values? What is your purpose? What is your perception? And for me, it's about asking the right questions. because anybody can draw a logo that becomes surface pattern. If you give them the DNA, that puts the depth in it. And I go back to Disney, it's not just the logo, it's the way they treat every customer from the first to the last. It's a way of life. So I think often what happens is people almost try and skip that step of, okay, what is it that we stand for? What is it that, what are our values? How do we want people to experience us? So I think one of those mistakes is people don't ask the right questions. And I think by asking the right questions, then you can give your designer almost like a book and go, right, this is what we stand for. Go and make us something cool.
Mhm.
So for me, those mistakes are not asking the right questions, not understanding yourself, talking about the product. And, they're so easy to fix.
Mhm.
Just throttle back, put some thought into it, and really, really work with somebody to pull that stuff out of your head. Go. And the other thing that people don't do, as my fifth one, talk to your customers. It's so obvious. We've all got that blind spot. And talk to your customers. What is it you stand for? When I rebranded my own business, I asked my customers, what is it they got from working with me? And I was really hopeful they're going to go, well, expertise, great advice. I'm like, no, we feel more confident. We know what we're doing. We enjoy working with you. And I was suddenly realized there was this gap between what I thought people were taking away and what they actually were. And I think sometimes we just forget to talk to the most obvious person, the customer.
Mhm. It's like those memes where it's like, here's what I think I look like running versus
Yeah.
here's what I really look like, right? Like, I think we all live in that space. And I think reminding people to talk to your customers, we all talk to our customers, but like having those deeper conversations about your brand is important. Yeah. One of your brand
Absolutely.
mottos that I love that you hold up, you're holding up this sign throughout is don't be boring. So,
Yes.
can you tell us where that came from and why you decided to hang your hat on that?
Oh, gosh. It was quite funny. I remember during lockdown, I got hooked on an app called Clubhouse.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's where digital hospitality started. Yeah.
yes, and I was a part of that, but I also did a lot of marketing rooms. And what I found really interesting was they'd have these moderators that would, they'd have this green bean and it gave them a huge amount of permission to talk. Absolute bollocks. And it was just rubbish what they were saying. And there was this bit where I remember just saying, I went up on stage and it was an audio app and going, come on, don't be boring. Come on, this is just not right. Or there was somebody, I don't know, somebody banging on about their model that they created, and it was just rubbish. I was like, oh, don't be boring. Anyway, a couple of my friends heard me say this more than once. Like, Rich, this is part of your brand DNA. And don't be boring is not just me attacking other people. Not far
Yeah.
from it. Don't be boring is that bit where, almost going back to Amani's point about why do we lose creativity? Because we forget to think, or we forget to not say, but that's the way we've always done it. So don't be boring is a way for me to challenge other people in their thinking, which is, why is this thing that somebody's trying to say you're really good? Come on. Or why is that the way you've always done it? Okay, is it the best way? And it's for me, it's a bit of a call to action. And then I sort of was playing with it last year and just thought, okay, there's a slight negative connotation to this. And I realized that one of the things that if you're not boring, then you become amazing. So I've kind of added on, don't be boring, be amazing, because it's a bit of a call to action, bit of a call to arms.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it sounds negative. I think it's a gentle reminder. I mean, I'm interacting with salespeople all day, every day. And my big thing is like, you can't afford to be boring. You have to stick out. There's so many emails, there's so many subject lines, there's so many, you can't be boring. Like there's boring will crush your bottom line. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's abusive at all. I actually think it's a gentle reminder to not be boring. What is something recently, like what's a non-boring, exciting tactic that you've seen a company do recently that energized you?
Do you know, I always like it when I see things in real life. And I went to a friend of mine for Christmas gave me this experience day, and it's hard to describe. It's called Phantom Peak, and what I loved about it was a 4D immersive experience. So I don't want to say an escape room because that doesn't do it justice, but it was almost like a block or like a whole city street
Hmm.
in London with all different shops and experiences, but all very steampunk. And you had to interact with actors who were, oh my gosh, they're really in role. Like for the first 20 minutes, there were a load of British people being slightly awkward about it before it kicked in. And you sort of had to go up to them to ask them questions, to do clues that unlocked a puzzle on your phone. And what I really loved about the whole experience was when we arrived there was this massive old style billboard, like saying Phantom Peak. And I just looked up at it and thought, okay, we've arrived now. And it was that kind of first impressions. Then the mayor of the local town of Phantom Peak came out and spoke to us in full kind of sort of gusty Victorian kind of accent. And it was just a great experience. The whole thing was like really unexpected, but it just started off with like a billboard. And then you go in and there was a bit of hype around it. And I was a bit kind of, being British, we like to question things a lot. Is this going to be good? Like, why? I mean, don't get me wrong, if there's a queue, we'll join it and then just see what happens and moan about it. But this was one of those things where it was an interactive thing. So it was half on your phone, half in real life. So it was an experience. I thought it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. And then the marketing around it, afterwards, all the emails and everything else, it's just your standard stuff. But it's really brought out the personality of the place. And I just thought, yeah, this has captured my imagination for sure.
I love that. It's great sense of arrival too. That arrival experience is everything. Sets the
Yeah.
tone. Yeah.
So we have arrived at the portion of the show where we kind of flip the script. So we let you ask both me and Mandy any question you'd like to ask us. Nothing is off limits. So what is said question and who would you like to ask that question to?
Well, can I have two? Which I realise is one question. I feel like the genie with the bottle here, and I've wasted a question. So I'm going to hit at Mandy first, just because I've got a sales question. So I work with a lot of amazing businesses that hate sales, right? So it's sales for non-sales people. And it's one of those ones where I'm like, if you own the business, you're head of sales as well as head of product. But what's that bit of advice or tip that you would give somebody that hates sales but runs a business to try and get them to go, do you know what, you can do this?
Yeah, I love this question. And I'm going to go back to stigma. There is such a stigma around sales. And that if you're an entrepreneur, if you own a business, you are a salesperson, whether you like it or not. And a good salesperson is a listener and an educator. And you are just educating people about this product or service or widget that you are so passionate about, that you think the world should know about. And when you can look at it in that way, I am solving a problem. I am educating somebody. I am making somebody's life better. I am giving somebody something they need that they didn't even know they needed. When you look at it like that, you are never going to sell anything in your life. You're actually selling everything because you are passionate about it and you're educating and listening and solving a problem. So the stigma around sales, I work with heads of companies all the time. They'll tell me, I just was working with the CFO the other day and he's like, our chief sales officer is gone, so I have to be the interim sales leader, and I hate sales. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, you don't hate sales. You saw a movie where a salesperson had a bad stigma about it, and you've got a bean in your head that you shouldn't like salespeople. That you don't hate sales. You think you should, but you don't. Or somebody along the lines told you something bad about a salesperson, or maybe you met a bad sales. All of these things could be true. And the other thing that is true is that you can still lead salespeople if you have no sales experience. It's really about staying organized, being passionate, listening, and educating. So that I would start them back on like, why did you start this business and why are you passionate about this product? And then tell them, guess what? You just sold me on this. And then that's
I
like
could
that
do
aha
with you in my
moment.
pocket. I could do it like a pocket Mandy just to pop out and say that, because it just summed everything up. Now there's an app.
So
Pocket
no,
Mandy.
that's
I like
so
Pocket Mandy.
this is we need Mandy to create a Mandy bot. So anytime you have a question from Mandy about sales, you put it into the little bot and she has the answer come right there. I want to create so maybe that's a project we could do together, Mandy. A Mandy
Yeah.
bot and then an Amani bot. I'm being dead serious with that.
I'm dead serious too. You heard it here first. Let's
I like it.
monetize this Mandy bot. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I have to give Richard a cut now. It's
Find
recorded.
fee.
It's recorded.
Amani, I've got a question for you, because I love music, and this is the first Zoom call I've had or webinar that I've done where I've got music behind my head and I can see music all behind you. I love house music. I've had the privilege of going to a couple of house clubs in the States when I was younger. I was going to ask sort of I'm not going to ask what's your favorite track, because that's just an awful thing to ask. But if you were going to go down the house garage route, you know, what's some absolute classics that, you know, light you up or get you in the mood?
Okay, so house music. I gotta remember the names artists, but it's that song Follow Me, Follow Me. It's like a classic song. Yeah, that's
Ron
probably
Carroll, I think.
Yeah. So I love that one. And then there's some Miguel Miggs. He's pretty popular house artist too.
Fantastic.
I love him. He's got a song with Michelle Indiocello that I love. So those are 2 house tracks. And then it's funny you mentioned garage music. Like that's very well known in UK, but we call it something different here. Those are 2 right off the bat. Even it's very commercial, but Gypsy Woman or whatever, that's kind of a more commercial.
Crystal Waters.
Crystal Waters, yeah. But then you can get to more of her catalog also. That's like a genre, like I'm really into Afro beats and Amapiano. And so that's kind of, I think Amapiano is like Afro house music. So those are kind of some of the derivatives. So that's kind of how I would answer that question.
I love it. I love it, because I just think there's something about, no matter what mood you're in, you know, music can move you. And I just find it one of those things where behind me, I've got records by Masters at Work and Pete Tong. And each year I go and see Pete Tong with a full classical orchestra doing house music. And a few years ago, he did You've Got the Love with Candy Staton, an incredible, beautiful singer with a full classical orchestra. It was just incredible. And I think there's something about, for me, when you see something live and you see that expertise and those literally masters of their craft, I find it really inspiring. And I think there's something about music and sport that really resonates to me in business. I love watching my sports teams. I love watching music and musicians at their absolute peak of excellence, because I think there's so much we can learn as business people, as well as having a damn good time.
Yeah, I think what you just spoke on is why AI music can never replace like in-person concerts and that experience. Like you can create tracks and you can put them up on Spotify, but that in-person concert feeling that you just described is what AI cannot duplicate. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I think that's the moment. That's the moment that I think when you talk about music, but it's also one of those things that you think about in business. How can you create those moments where people go, that's fantastic? And yes, you can do it digitally, but if you're going to do it in person, how do you do it in person? I just think those magical moments, I think that's what we all crave post-lockdown. And I think there's this little bit where, you know, if we do the same thing over and over again, we lose how do we create those magic moments?
Yeah, agreed. Now, if you were going to go back and talk to Richard when he was 21, just graduating from university, and give him advice based on everything you've learned so far in life, what advice would you give your younger self?
I give him 2 bits of advice. One, I'm going to steal from the great American philosopher Ted Lasso, which is believe. I mean, that guy talks a lot of sense. even
Yeah.
though he calls it soccer. And the other thing I'd say is not just the belief thing, because I think one of the things I'm really proud of is how resilient and strong and adaptable I am. I think it's a really great strength, but that belief when things are hard, I think that would be really helpful. And then I think the other thing I'd say is put some money aside each
Mm.
month. Just put some money aside, and that's the advice I'm giving to my sons. Just put a little bit aside each month, because it will make your life a lot easier. So I think one's just a really good piece of advice, and the other's a piece of advice that I think my younger self would need to know.
Love it. Mandy, close us out.
I have 2 final questions. Question 1, can we talk about your pink shoes? Where did
Yes.
they come from? If you go to Richard's website, he is in pink shoes in every picture. I know it goes along with the don't be boring, but like, what is the origin story of the pink shoes?
The origin story is actually this pair here,
Okay.
which were my first pair of pink shoes.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine, Mike, who I was talking about earlier, was doing a project for Nike. And I said to him, right, you're in the States. Can you get me some US 13? We call them trainers. You guys call them sneakers.
Mhm.
I said, I'll give you $100. Just bring me a pair back, because they always have them in my size. It's like, Rich, I've got no time. I've got no luggage space. I'm like, Mike, I'll give you the money. And he rings me up from New York and he says, right, I'll buy you a pair, but whatever I buy you, you have to wear them. And I'm like, I'll give you the money. He's like, no, I insist. You've done a good job. This is what I want to do for you. And he bought me these back thinking that I wouldn't wear them. He was wrong. I've worn these to weddings, funerals, raves, but there's this little bit where last year I went to Downing Street a couple of times where our Prime Minister lives.
Mhm.
I've been to the Houses of Parliament. And for me, there's that little bit where I want to feel comfortable. And part of my scaffolding, and I talk about scaffolding a lot, is actually I like to not only feel comfortable with my footwear, but also feel comfortable in myself. So if I have to wear a jacket, I'll have my jeans on, but I also want to have something that is me. And actually, that kind of vibrancy and that kind of a little bit of rebellious streak comes out in the pink shoes. And what's really funny was a client for Christmas made me some. And you
Oh,
ready
those
for
are
these? Check
cool.
these out. So he's made
Wow.
these for me, spray painted them, and on one side it says "Don't be boring."
Aw.
So we can do that there, and on the
Yeah.
other side it's got richer solutions.
Mm.
Oh, wow. So for the listeners, Richard is holding up a pair of really awesome pink Nike tennis shoes, but they say don't be boring on the one side and then richer
Yeah.
solutions on the those that's what a gift. That's really special.
So I
That's
did.
cool.
What's really mad is if I'd have left this pair in the box. So these were $100.
Mhm.
A couple of years ago, they were trading for $40,000.
Wow.
Limited edition Kevin Durant Arm Pearls. So what
Mm.
I've done since then is I've been collecting pink trainers, and I just think there's a little bit where there's a little bit of my personality, and it's also a little bit of a screw you to the
Mm.
system, because
Mhm.
actually, I define who I am, not what I wear. And it's a minor act of rebellion, but it's also become part of my brand. Um, Although they are invading my office, because I think I now have about 12 pairs.
You're gonna need a separate bedroom. Well, the oldest
Closet.
is going away to school soon. You give me that might be the new pink storage room.
I would have that.
Okay, last question. You spent an hour with us. This is a lot of time, and I know how busy you are. How can we give back to you? How can we lift you? How can we support you in all of these really, really spectacular things that you're doing?
Thank you for the offer. That's very,
Yeah.
very kind. And I would gladly accept. I'm Richard Liverman. Find me on LinkedIn, connect, go onto my website, richersolutions.com. If there's people that need a refresh on their brand, if there's somebody that's coming to terms with being ADHD, if there's somebody that needs some help with their business to get out of the rut and to be amazing again, give me a call, get in touch. I work with people all across the world. I love people. I love pink shoes. So yeah, just get in touch. That's all I ask.
That's great. I love it. And
Awesome.
then Richard's Richard's website scrolling across, but if you're listening, it's richardsolutions.com, and all his information will be in the show notes. So check him out. He's a lovely man and funny fella. So just for no other reason, check him out. It's a good time.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for being here, Richard. We're going to put you back in the green room. And once again, round of applause for Richard Liverman there.
Thank you for having me.
Mandi, another great show. Who do we have to look forward to next week, or to be determined? To be determined for next week. We'll let everyone know as soon as we know who our guest is. And with that, we say thanks again to our guest, Richard Liverman, who's joining us today. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, share our YouTube channel with a friend. Don't forget to leave a rating and review. And with that, we will see you next week for another episode of Adventures in Business Live. Take care,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you for tuning in to Adventures in Business. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast on the platform that you're currently listening it on. And don't forget to share it with your friends and anybody that might be as much of the business nerds as Amani and I are. See you next time for another captivating interview.